Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this episode of VI Shots. My name is Michael Aivaliotis, and this is the show devoted to the world of LabVIEW. With each episode, I bring you interviews, discussions, and share with you ideas for how you can take your LabVIEW development and your career to the next level. Well, thank you again for joining me on this VI Shots episode, which this episode is live, and I'm really excited. This is probably the most excited I've ever been on the show because I have the original cast from the VI Shots Live at an iWeek that we did a few years ago, and we're here to make a big announcement for personally myself, and let's start from the left, as I see on these little squares at the bottom of the screen. On the left, we have Brian Powell, who is now with Anthem Healthcare, correct, Brian?
Athena Health. Health.
Athena Health. And you're still a developer there, are you?
That's right. I'm a lead developer at Athena Health. We make medical practice software to help doctors run their medical practices better.
And the transition previously from NI, National Instruments, was very easy because it was just across the street, apparently.
That's right.
And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But let's go now to our next guest, which is Christopher G. Ralph from VI Engineering.
How you doing?
And nice to have you, Chris, on the show again.
Thank you. I am still at VI Engineering.
And someone is screaming in the background. Is that someone being tortured?
That's my dog. It's okay.
Okay. Jack Dunaway from Wirebird Labs is again with us on the show. Welcome, Jack.
Yeah, thanks. Looking forward to this show, Mike. We'll do a little bit of turning the tides on you this show, I hope.
And we also have Justin Gores from JKI. Welcome, Justin.
Thanks, Mike. Great to be here.
And, of course, myself, and we also have a lot of guests online, and we have David, Tim, Christian online asking a few questions, and this is something that I want to make sure that everyone is aware that there is a question panel that you can log into and ask questions live on the show, and if you go to vishots.com/live, you'll see the video, and there's a link there to go to Google+. So you have to log into Google+ and watch the video there to ask questions. And we have, let's see, one question already says, why is Brian Powell so handsome? Oh, that was from Christopher Ralph, so that can get it.
I mean, why does the sun rise? Why is the sky blue?
That's a very
video effects. That's all it is.
So today's episode is in the show notes. It was kind of cryptic, kind of mysterious. There was a big announcement. And I'll start off by making that announcement. I don't want to keep people in suspense too much. Since about a month ago, I've left my last employer, which was JKI, of about 9 years, and now I've started my own company. And I took the brand that I've already had, which was VI Shots, and I decided to make it VI Shots LLC, and it's now a full-fledged company with all the rights and privileges, I guess, and the taxes and all that fun stuff. But it's a consulting company that specializes, of course, in LabVIEW, and it's something that I've been thinking about for a long time and planning and dreaming about this time to kind of have my own company and be able to go on my own, and finally it's happened. And so if you've seen some mysterious things online where my LinkedIn profile has changed all of a sudden, that's the reason. So I'd like to pass it around the mic and see if anybody has any questions or any feedback on that.
Wants to just congratulate you.
Congratulations.
Well, thanks. I think, well, all of you have been aware of this from before this show, so this is not something that's new to you, I guess. We have some congratulations from our chatters there online, which thank you. Thank you, Becky, who is also with VI Engineering. And one thing that we've asked people is that they can ask any questions. So if you have any question for myself, it could be LabVIEW related, it could be business related, or personal development, feel free to ask it.
I do want to say, Mike, that obviously congratulations, but you've been such a big part of the community over the years, obviously with leading Lava and other efforts like that. But it's certainly, I think, in my opinion, a big loss to JKI. For those people that don't know, Mike has been the guy that's really been behind VI Package Manager, which has certainly revolutionized the way that people interact with reuse and distribution within LabVIEW. It's now distributed with LabVIEW through the NI installers. It's a great product that we all use and some of us, I guess, take for granted now, which is great. Kudos for you. I know that JKI did a launch of kind of a new way of accessing that through platforms and what have you at NI Week, but I wanted to say publicly thank you so much for all the work that you've done on that. Not only bringing it to the community, bringing it to the people that are using LabVIEW, but the professionalism that's been behind it, the decisions that have been made and the features that go into it, the user experience has been very positive, and it's been a real honor to watch that product grow from what it was and have you take it and shape it into what it is. It's an imperative product in the marketplace now.
Well, thank you, Chris, and I appreciate those comments. And we're going to talk a little bit about that later on in the show. But yeah, VIPM has been kind of one of my highlights in my career past, developing this product and helping bringing it to market with others at JKI, and kind of leading the feature list and the release cycle and all of that stuff has been exciting and fun, and I learned a lot along the way as far as product development and what to do right and what not to do. So I'd like to share a little bit about that.
Sure.
And let me just do a screen share here, just to talk a little bit about kind of some stuff that I've kind of my career and kind of reflect on. It's not a fancy presentation. It's pretty sparse, but
is this like an in memoriam at the Oscars?
Yes, exactly that.
Do we need music here? A requiem?
I can cue up music. Let's see. So basically, I started off my career as a test technician in 1993, and the LabVIEW version of the time, Brian probably knows it well, was LabVIEW 3.1, and or it was 3.0 transitioning to 3.1, one or the other, and the way I got started was that I had no idea. I didn't like programming in general, and I didn't have a lot of experience in programming. I took it in college, but I wasn't. I had an electrical background, so I was focused not on software programming, and what I did, what was requested of me was to create a little small test system, and I was testing batteries at the time. And I did like what anybody would do, is I would go out and research the market, find out what tools are out there for creating helping me create an automated test system. And I knew I didn't want text-based language. I could go and get C or Visual Basic or something like that, but I did not want that. I wanted something that I could understand, I could work with, and something that was kind of plug and play and interactive. And I did my research and found that National Instruments had this software called LabVIEW, and at the time the district's sales manager in our area. I was living in Canada in Toronto at the time, and his name was Brian Webb, and he was the one who first introduced me to LabVIEW. And he came in and he did this cool demo where, again, even back then there was the measure, acquire, analyze, present. That's basically it. And actually, I don't even know if they had that actual demo like that. He would basically put down a while loop, a Boolean. He would go on the front panel, resize the Boolean, and say, hey, look, you can resize the front panel objects, and you can stop this loop, and you can do all these cool things. And I remember one demo that it didn't actually blow me away, but it piqued my interest, and I couldn't find it, but I found an equivalent. And I'll just share the screen here. And it's basically this animation. So I'll just run this. I'm clicking on Hangouts. I should be clicking on the API. So it's basically this animated. It probably looks choppy on the Google Hangouts, but it's pretty smooth on my screen.
Wow.
And you can adjust the frame rate. And you can make it go faster. I'm like, see, LabVIEW can do animation. Isn't that awesome? It can do 3D animation and graphics and stuff.
Wow. That's when you got the idea for VIPM.
The seed was planted at that moment in time. Yes.
If I'm not mistaken, that demo right there might even still be in the help or marketed somehow.
Basically,
I've seen it recently.
instead of the circular donut thing, it was a dog running. It was a little dog running, and I don't know if Brian can knows.
This is the major upgrade for LabVIEW 8.2 right there.
Wow, we need to find this.
This is kind of a substitute for the original, but there was a little dog and animated, and basically what it is a pict ring with all the different images, right? One image for every element, and then just you index through all the elements in the pict ring. And at the time I thought, wow, this is amazing. LabVIEW is pretty powerful, but little did I know that this was just a little trick there. But in any case, that kind of got me hooked on it and got me excited about, hey, I can do this too. I can go in there and I could make these cool front panel objects. I can connect wires to things and I can do stuff. And for me, that was enough to get me hooked and just get obsessed about LabVIEW and start programming and just diving right into it and kind of focusing 100% on it. I reached a certain stumbling block along the way, and at the time there was no forums, there was no online community. Period. I don't even know if there was a mailing list at all.
InfoLabVIEW. We had InfoLabVIEW back in
InfoLabVIEW. Okay,
88 or 89.
Right. So I didn't find it. I didn't know it existed. So this was a time where if you asked for a file driver upgrade from NI, they would tell you to log into a BBS and give you a password, which was NI Eagle, and then you would log in and you would download something. So this
just like the password to most of the iLib?
Probably not. So this was the kind of the stuff I was surrounded with and kind of the environment. So I went to the biggest challenge I had was I didn't know how to create a secondary screen pop up in my VI. Like I click a button and I wanted to dialogue with some parameters to pop up, and I didn't know how to do that. That's where I was stuck, right? And there was no LabVIEW official training or anything like that at the time. So what I did, I went to a LabVIEW user group meeting locally in the area, and someone was doing a presentation, and they clicked a button, and the secondary window popped up, and I was like, "How did you do this? Show me how you did this." And I went up and asked him, and he said, "Oh yeah, you just show from panel when called and close afterwards and things like that."
It's just that easy.
It's just that easy if you know where it is. Little things like that you'd reach a little hump and then you couldn't get over it. And I was all alone at the time in the lab working on these things, which, looking back now, it's like, it's silly. Like, how could you not know this? But that's kind of the situation. And a lot of people, I feel, these days are almost in that same situation with LabVIEW. A lot has changed as far as training materials online and all that, but if you're alone in the lab working on something and you want to get something done, LabVIEW doesn't provide an easy way to say, oh, this is what you want to do. You want to click here and do that. So there are still some areas there that need improvement, but I think there's a lot of ways that individuals such as ourselves can go out and learn more and be part of the community. We got another congratulations from Steen Schmidt in the comments. Thank you, Steen. I appreciate it. Another comment from Jerobit saying, all the best, Michael. Thank you. And later on, so this same company that was doing this presentation basically had this program called this Jumpstart, where one of their engineers would come to your company and help you for a few days. So I invited them to come over and help me in my project. And then they basically said, well, we do all our projects with this template. And that's where I first got introduced to the first concept of a state machine. But it wasn't in the same form as what, for example, the JKI state machine is now. It was kind of a two-loop situation. Or it was one loop with an inner loop, and it was pretty complicated, and it wasn't very clean. But it solved the problem of what happens when you have multiple buttons on the front panel with multiple presses, and you want to fire events for each of those. And of course, we didn't have event structure back then, and I was kind of like a godsend. Like, he just came in for 3 or 4 hours, showed me this template and this framework, quote unquote framework, and it accelerated my development and my learning to new heights. And just by asking someone to come in, and it was, I don't know how much we were paying at the time for that. I think it was $1,000 a day or something like that. But the value of that was tremendous. It was almost could have been like $1 million for me, because it just opened my mind to new ideas that I didn't know existed, and that could be done in LabVIEW, right?
Yeah, I can recall discovering the state machine also. I literally remember some of the feelings I was having of excitement, just realizing this solves all of my problems that I've been having, these real-life problems. What's funny is that the state machine was not written in LabVIEW. It was written in C++. It was for an embedded controller on a welder, of all things, except I was doing LabVIEW coincidentally at the time. And just that moment of learning this new thing that would launch you to this next level with this thing you really like, it's a really made a really big impression. That was actually exactly like you. I was not introduced to it until I started connecting to another engineer who was actually a support engineer, who ended up introducing that to me, having been in this tiny silo in the lab prior to that.
Yeah, as far as training goes, and we've talked about this on the show before, it's often like, hey, I've just learned what a state machine is, and I'm going to use it for everything. And then you learn the next thing, and I'm going to use that for everything, and then you hear about active framework, and I'm going to use that for, well, whatever you want to use that for.
Yes, everything.
Everything. I think that's really the key of what the difference between like an experienced developer and a developer is that you can know the positives and negatives for each of the implementations and be able to not just correctly select which one to use, but know when to abandon one for a particular task and move on. Go ahead.
What you just said, I saw it as a graph the other day. It was it was proficiency versus confidence. As your proficiency goes up, your confidence goes up linearly until all of a sudden you realize, oh wait, maybe I can't use everything for everything, and maybe there are more things that I know, and you get this big dip in confidence until your proficiency starts to catch back up with you.
Right. Which is a very humbling dip on that graph.
Indeed.
Although I assume like guys like Brian Powell, it's just linear, like it's flat.
Exponential.
It's just
a step function.
It's a step function.
No, it's just a flat line at the bottom of not confident, not proficient.
It's a point.
It's a point.
Singularity.
For 25 years, it's a point.
Wow, we just described Brian Powell as a singularity. That's pretty accurate.
So Brian, you kind of went to this new company. You're not doing LabVIEW, I assume, right?
That's correct. I don't do LabVIEW as my day job. I still dabble in it. I still presented it in iWeek and at the LabVIEW Architects Forum, things like that. But my day job is mostly cloud-based database programming.
Oh, cool. So what have you transferred over as far as knowledge to this new position from your days at NI? What kind of fundamental concepts are kind of transcend positions, I guess, and you can kind of bring over and say, yeah, I've learned this there and I brought it over here.
Yeah, that's actually one of the main reasons I left NI was, I had spent, it was 26 years at NI. Most of that time was in R&D. I was a group manager, I was a technical lead, and helped grow the LabVIEW team, helped grow the company over that course of time. When I started, it was 135 employees. When I left, it was about 7,000 employees. The LabVIEW team grew similarly. So that was, it was fun doing that. But then, the last 3.5 years, I was working with customers and basically helping them be successful with our products. And a lot of that was applying my experience from LabVIEW R&D of knowing how to build a good, strong software team, and then helping our customers do that. And then as part of that, it was like, I kind of miss doing that firsthand rather than just teaching our customers how to do that. And so the opportunity at athenahealth is to grow their Austin office from about 30 employees to 600 or 800 in the next 10 years. And so that, to me, is an exciting problem regardless of what the technology is. Just growing a software team from small to large. I've done that before, and I'm looking forward to doing that again.
Well, that's awesome. And we have a question from Steen. It's kind of personal, but I think I'll answer it. It says, that's what Steen says. It might be too personal. But what did you miss at JKI? And then what was your motivation to make this jump? I didn't actually. Well, yes. So when you're going off on your own and you're, I guess there's one of the key things is that you have the freedom. Okay, but with freedom comes responsibility, meaning that you have to be on top of, getting customers. You have to be on top of invoicing, sending out quotes, all those little kind of things, and paying taxes and figuring out how to do all that stuff. And you gotta do things that, as an employee, you don't have to worry about, right? You get your paycheck and you get your project and you do it, and then you move on to the next project and so on and so forth. But as kind of being independent, you have to worry about all these other things and making sure you have business coming up and in the funnel and all that fun stuff. So those are the things that I guess come along the way, and so I miss not having to do that. But on the other hand, the benefits of kind of charting your own direction and having your own, being able to, forge your own path, so to speak, is overweighs the other little things. And if those things get in the way, just pay someone to do them for you. So that's kind of the answer there.
I'd want to ask exactly the same question to Jack, because for those people that don't know, Jack obviously has his own company now with Whitebird Labs, but he was a previous JKI employee as well.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer. Actually, a lot of people have asked me that privately. I have gotten that question. I can hardly number the amount of times, and the answer is always the same. The thing that I miss the most, absolutely, and I felt insane leaving behind, honestly, was the team itself. Because especially now, I take for granted this concept of being with a team of folks who the entry point for your conversation in your engineering design is far beyond where it is with just kind of your average team, just in terms of the amount of talent that's there. The amount of it was incredible, because while I was there, I feel like I was the least talented person on the team, which is a fantastic place to be, because that means that you can grow a lot personally. But since being not being around that anymore, you don't necessarily have it. You can't literally turn over to this way and be like, "Hey, so and so, what do you think about this?" And then within 10 seconds, you've got a fantastic answer that really launches your design in a new way. So that's honestly what I miss. What I miss some of the most. I think absolutely the most talented people that I've ever worked with. That was the highest concentration possible.
Oh, thank you, Jack.
Yeah, that says a lot.
Thanks, man.
And also Justin.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and
you're welcome.
Yeah, I love it.
To use a Brian Powell quote.
Yeah, and I've told a lot of people this too. I believe that Jim is perhaps the most technically talented person I've ever met. Just his uncanny ability to solve problems. This is the uncanny part. He knew the solution to the problem even before you asked it. It's just incredible, the ability to unravel very, very incredibly technical situations and do software engineering design. Amazing. So that leadership, not being around that anymore, yeah, I miss it. That's honestly the thing that I miss the most.
So that leads you into the second part of Steen's question, since you've talked up JKI so much, is what was your motivation to leave?
Yeah, so again, I answer the exact same that I have since the day that it first became official, and that's essentially I've got these ideas that are just burning holes through my skull, and they've got to be let out. I am not very inclined to run my own business. Like Mike was talking about, the logistics of it are actually very difficult, and not necessarily, a lot of it can be fun, but it's can be a little bit mundane, and it can absolutely be very scary. I've had a lot of very, very scary moments in the past 2.5 years running my own business, where I realize, oh, wait a minute, this might not be what it needs to be for me and for my family especially. We've got 2 little girls, got my wife to think about just our own personal sanity and health, and businesses, running your own business can really compete with that at times. So it's not necessarily just this independent desire. It's certainly not the desire to be your own boss, because that's a total myth. Everybody is your boss. You go from having one boss to having as large as your surface area to the world is. That's how many bosses you have. So it's not necessarily, to me, the independence reason. It's the ability to really push forward some things that I see as very important in our community. One thing that we might dive into a little bit later, if not this episode, maybe a later episode, is just the concept of us being able to get out of our silos and start using better tools together. Michael is kind of one of the founding fathers of this concept in the LabVIEW community, who has built Lava and who is bringing us together rather than keeping us in our own little silos. I want to put a lot of energy, positive energy, into people who are doing just that, because the finiteness of my own ability to create is incredibly frustrating. You know, at the end of the day, you're like, yikes, I did not get done what I wanted to get done today. It's not as cool as I wanted it to be, and you've just got to be working with a lot more folks to make that happen. It's not going to happen if you try to build it yourself. And that's something that I think a lot of other programming languages get right. When you look around at especially the web tech, the Perl, the PHP, the Ruby, the newer stuff like Rust and Go, things like that. Man, they've got it nailed. JavaScript, they are pushing so far, so fast, so quickly. I'm afraid that we need to start to model ourselves more on that, and helping push some of these ideas more forward is exactly what I'm interested in. That's one thing. That's the reason why I came to JKI, why I was attracted to them, because they had done such an excellent job since the early 2000s of doing just this, and it's continuing this exact same journey. That's my motivation.
Well said, Jack. And I would echo a lot of Jack's sentiment as far as the team side of things. However, JKI had an awesome team and still has an awesome team, but I've been through some other companies as well that also had awesome teams. Yes, go on.
Mostly because you were on those teams.
Well,
I was going to say
that's exactly my point. Is because I was on those teams, they were awesome. But
I was going to say that I moved to another big company. Athena Health worldwide has about 3,500 employees, mostly up in the northeastern U.S. And I had various parameters that I was looking at when I was looking for a different company, and one of them, I had some guidelines from my wife. It was one is a stable company, right? Some of the stuff that Jack talked about, somebody else put it to me as like, starting your own business is like having a second marriage. So as long as your wife is cool with that, it's fine. And my wife was more interested my wife was more interested in a stable company for me to work for, and so having a stable company where I don't have to worry about HR, I don't have to worry about legal, I don't have to worry about a whole bunch of different things. I can just focus on managing my software team and all the things around that. And also smart people is another thing. I work at a place where everybody is really smart, just like at NI. And I would really miss that if I weren't working with a bunch of smart people. And I've talked to some people who have left NI and gone to places where they feel like they weren't hiring the best and brightest, and it was really frustrating to them. And eventually they would find some other job that was more interesting to them. So I think those are some things you can look for. If you're going out on your own, which I certainly considered when I left NI, I think you have to make do. You have to create that network of smart people that you work with, and put in all that extra effort on the accounting side, on the legal side, et cetera, to make it successful.
Yeah, that's a very good point. As far as it's in the kind of what I was trying to get at is that having a good group of people and smart people and a great team that you can collaborate with on the same level is pretty awesome and a great place to be. And also, I wanted to emphasize that you should. If you're in that position, you should cherish that moment, because at that point, no other point in time will you be in that position where these people will be in the same room in the same company at the same time. So that is kind of a special kind of magic that exists at that point in time, and you should kind of cherish it and appreciate it and kind of slow down and look around and say, hey, this is cool. These guys or gals that I'm working with will only be here in this moment in time, and let's just do something with it. And let's just do something great with it.
Yeah, and not
and
just
that,
cherish.
Well, I think if
Bill-
I can jump in, that actually reminds me, or brings to mind something else that Steen said here that I want to call out, where he says in the questions.
Yeah.
So great companies must be prepared to let their talented people go on their own at some point in time. And he notes that this, I think can be seen as a trend, particularly in the LabVIEW industry. I think that's a really, really insightful thing, and I've thought about it a lot over the last couple of years as I've seen various people leave and start their own things, and not just at JKI, but around our industry. And for me, I think the issue is that for any company, typically speaking, your best people, whether they're young or old or whatever, your best people are going to grow faster personally than your company itself can. And I think what happens then is that you tend to see the best people in any given group so almost sort of age out the top of the company, because if Michael's capabilities or Jack's interests or whatever are growing, or Brian's life goals or whatever are growing at a faster rate or in a different way than the company that they're contained within can house them, then you have to leave, right? Then you have to look at your life and say, well, I would actually get more out of my life doing this other thing, whether it's joining a different company or going on your own. And I think that that's something that is just really common, that happens to sort of the top tier of people in any company, because they're just simply moving faster than the company that's employing them. And that's not a good or bad thing for the company. I think it's just something that all companies, no matter their size, eventually end up dealing with.
And I think it's the leadership in the really good companies that recognize that, and that actually can either say, you know what, we do have this top tier here, and they are growing faster than we can. We need to make a decision. Do we either, keep the ship on the course that it is, and if we have that inevitable attrition, we have, and it's just part of our business plan, we have to deal with it, or can we empower some of those people that we see as being really super valuable to our future, to let them feel like they're personally invested in the company, and that they have the ability to help us turn the ship, whether that be in a minor way, just relative to keep them happy, or a major way to actually make a really positive impact on the business. So I agree that there is the potential for, especially in larger companies, that if you have that top tier and they do start kind of aging out. But I've been very fortunate for a couple of companies that I've worked with over my career where the top level management have recognized that and then have enabled the people in that top tier to take at least partial control, so that they feel like they're personally invested in the company and that they have that control.
I think that's precisely true.
One of the driving things that makes that possible, though, is revenue growth, right?
Absolutely.
That's one of the things that caused me to move to the healthcare industry, which is a $2.8 trillion business just in the U.S. Is there's just a lot of growth in the medical IT side of things, and that kind of growth is not something I would see at NI in order to fund some of those projects that I think are cool. So
especially when Apple introduces HealthKit.
Introduces it and then puts it on hold for a couple of weeks while they figure out what else.
So Athena Health is involved in that, right?
I'm not sure how much I can say, but let's just say we're on top of things. We're on top of things. Let's just say that.
Right.
I believe the real answer is that the goal of a lot of the healthcare companies is to take the information that's in HealthKit, that's on your phone, and actually put it into your electronic medical records so that your doctor can see it too, because it's only of so much value when it's just on your phone for you to see.
Yeah, I'd like to put more weight even to what Steen is saying here, and also put that back as a testament to JKI, because one thing that's important, and I speak personally, whenever you do branch off, you don't necessarily consider it jumping ship or breaking up. Hopefully it's a branching off, and hopefully you're able to maintain those relationships. I can say that I have great relationships with all my former colleagues at JKI. Like, whenever we get together, we hang out with each other's families and have a good time, and also continue to talk technical stuff, LabVIEW things. But it's this opportunity to perhaps provide more, like you were talking about, Brian. When you're a when you're an employee of a company, there's kind of a calculable amount that you can necessarily add to the revenue of that company to help grow it. But then when you're external to that company, hopefully you can do things that multiply that even greater if you have that good ongoing relationship. One thing that I see about the LabVIEW community is that unless we as current developers really try to build the LabVIEW community and grow new LabVIEW developers coming out of school and who are wanting to do cool things with kind of programmery and electrically type things, that we get them into LabVIEW and be able to grow that for the long-term health of just the LabVIEW ecosystem at large. So being able to be this external influence to try to build a bigger pie so that you all end up having your slice of the pie is greater, I think that's a good opportunity for branching off.
Yeah, and that's kind of another thing that I wanted to do by going on my own, is to get more involved actually in the community, get more involved with some projects that I've been excited about that I've seen in the community, and I like to get involved with them, which I just didn't have the time or the direction to do so at JKI. So expect a lot more things from VI Shots in the future, a lot more videos, a lot more areas that I'll be getting into that I haven't gotten into before, but all because I want to get more people involved and excited about LabVIEW, and that's kind of what I'm excited about as well. Because we're running a little bit out of time, I just wanted to go through some other points on my presentation. But I really appreciate all the comments from our panel regarding starting on your own and all that stuff. As well, the feedback we got on the chat. There's a message from Danny Allard. Congrats, Michael. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Danny. From Steve Watts says, congrats, Michael. I appreciate it. Thank you, Steve. Steve Watts was also interviewed at one point on our show with a lot of nuggets of wisdom that he shared with us in the past.
If you can understand him through his accent.
Yes, the accent was a big problem. I don't know. He has to do something about that.
I tell you what,
Steve, you're awesome.
These foreigners on your panels, man, I can't understand a word they're saying.
Especially the Australians, they're horrible.
I know. Wait, what? Luckily, I'm from New Zealand.
Aren't the Australians and the New Zealanders, kind of
best friends?
Yes, they are.
Just like the Americans and the Canadians.
Did you finish installing your new DAC?
Well, the 51st state. Okay, so
the cork.
So as I was going through, how can I continue? How can I continue? Please tell me. So
put a link to that video up. Sorry, carry on.
And I just want to go through a little bit of the history of my background. But one thing I want to, because a lot of people, that are leaving school and deciding on a career, have kind of this choice or this question of, what do I do in my path? Like, what direction do I take? For me, it was clear after I kind of learned that LabVIEW was kind of the awesome tool that it was. I decided that, hey, there are companies out there that all they do is work on projects with LabVIEW. That's their exclusive business. And I said, well, if I can work on LabVIEW all day, I'd love it. That's what I want to do. So I looked around and I joined an alliance company in 1995 called Microsys in Toronto. That was a lot of fun, and they introduced me to the concept of that's the company that came in and helped me out on my project. And the state of the art back then was this. This was basically the state of the art. Is handling events in LabVIEW was you have a bunch of buttons, and you search and find out which button was pressed, and then you execute an event. And if you were fancy enough, you realize that you can convert it using enum and have kind of labeled cases here. But that was kind of the state of the art, and this was kind of the state machine, and you would fire off, and this is kind of something I slapped together in a few minutes just now, just so that while you guys were talking, just so that I can show you what was basically something. This is what I used to create, dozens of test systems at Microsys. This was before event structures.
You foreshadowed the actor framework.
Yes. And the question is, well, what if you have a level change? Well, then you would use this OpenGVI, which basically, what it did was it told you if something was changed. So it would fire, an event saying that, hey, something has changed, whether it was true to false or false to true.
And you could download the zip file of all the OpenG libraries and copy it by hand into VILib.
Right. And things would work. But at Microsys is where I started thinking about this concept of reuse libraries, and that's kind of where I started building my first reuse library. I just did that from day one. It's like, well, I should be doing this, and a lot of those reuse functions have come with me over the years in various different companies that I've worked for, including JKI recently.
What's the oldest reuse VI that you wrote that you still use?
It would probably be basically a file read write, text read write, because at the time you had to put down 3 or 4 VIs to do a file I/O. So I created a wrapper, as simple as that. So that was kind of the moment where I joined a great group of people, awesome team, and did a lot of different other projects, and my experience in LabVIEW grew tremendously because I was working in different industries over time. I decided to move on to another company, which is now defunct, DataPly, which was Michigan-based. They were just starting up an office in Toronto. Just quickly through this, in 2001, I started my own company. Previously, yes, I have done this before. But it was with a partner and investors. And that's kind of one thing I learned about starting your business is never have a partner. And also don't borrow money. The two biggest things that I would recommend that people don't do when they start their business. Make sure you're not in debt, and do it on your own if you can. Always. You can have collaborators and business relationships, but not partners are a different thing. And then, the reason why that business didn't last for very long was because we were in the telecom industry, and then telecom was it was just before the bubble burst. And back in 2001 is when the bubble burst, and we had all our eggs in our basket of we had developed software products. We even developed a hardware product as well. So I've done hardware development as well, and that's when everyone stopped funding any kind of R&D or development in telecom because that's when the bubble burst. So it was bad timing, very bad timing. So that only lasted a few years. And then to get out of that, I looked around locally to find different other alliance companies or other companies, but they were all kind of not doing very well. And then Jim, as you mentioned, Jack, was an awesome community member at the time, and he was the one who founded the OpenG community, and I was involved heavily in that towards the end of kind of my company because there was no work. I was basically sitting around creating reuse libraries and helping with OpenG, and because I just wanted to continue being involved. And what I did there was I helped create the first version of VIPM. Literally, I just wrote it in a weekend or two. I can't remember. Because Jim showed me this tool that installed files into LabVIEW, and it was basically one dialog box with a field where you pick a zip file and you say go, and it just unzipped it and put it into LabVIEW. And I said, well, it could be nicer than that. So I used some of the techniques of like all the UI elements of like I was using for a while buttons with icons. It was revolutionary back then. Using buttons with with icons. So I said, let me kind of snazz this up. So I created a new UI. Basically, the original, like how VIPM, the main window looks now, is kind of unchanged from the first version that I wrote back then on my own, with the buttons with the icons. And then when I sent that to Jim, I said, hey, here's something that you can use for OpenG. And at the time we labeled it OpenG Commander. He said, wow, he was kind of blown away. It's like, whoa, this is amazing. And then we started chatting some more, and he said, hey, you want to come over to California? I said, okay, sure. I'm not doing anything here anyway. My company's kind of not doing so well, so let's do that. And then basically that's when I left Canada and went to California back in 2005, and joined another amazing group of people that it was just Jim and a couple other people. And then coming to today, we have BI Shots LLC, which is my new venture, and kind of the whole next chapter concept is that throughout my career, my life, there's been various chapters and moments that are kind of pivotal to what I've been doing. One of them was leaving, Canada and moving to California with Jim. That was incredibly life-changing for me and my family, and also kind of opened up the world as far as coming to a team that was interested in being involved with the community, creating these little products, and that was kind of a new thing at the time for me. And products that were free and the community loved. So that was the big change for me. And all the other companies I went to, they were for a specific reason. I was always going to something. I was going to something better. I was not leaving something behind. I was always going to something better, or there was always something I was going to. And along the way, the key driver was LabVIEW, always. And that will be the key driver moving forward in the future in my kind of life and career, is that I want to make sure that LabVIEW is always at the core of everything I do. And that's kind of what my career has been. Everything I've been kind of going through the years has been, how can I make LabVIEW better, or how can I improve my knowledge in LabVIEW? How can I be more involved with LabVIEW, with the community, with that industry? And I feel that right now with VI Shots LLC, I think I'm at the right time where I can help out in addition to helping customers and running a business. How can I help the community and help others like Jack, who's working on some frameworks, improve those and make sure that the community has something useful that they can use. And that's kind of the end of my canned presentation. Some things I've learned along the way, I think I've mentioned already, but one of the things as far as software-wise is, some of the key elements that I've learned is to always be learning, always be challenging yourself, and always be improving. Don't be afraid to experiment and break code. I think that's something that a lot of people are afraid to do. They're afraid to try something out and see what happens. I always get upset when I see people on the forums asking a question, can I do this? What happens if I do this? Well, just try it. Find out what happens and then let us know. And come up with a reuse library that makes things easier if you have problems. And that's kind of what not so much now, but I'd like to get more into. But that's what I did at the beginning, and that's why I started Lava and lavag.org, is because of this thing. Well, there's no community. Well, I'm just going to start one, and I'm just going to go do it, because that's kind of what you have to do in order to be better. Try things out, experiment, make things, and show the world what you've made. So constantly create tools in the LabVIEW Tools Network. Create reuse libraries, participate in communities, do what you can to help out, because then you will be not only smarter and more experienced in the process, but you'll be looked upon as someone that is an expert in your field, and that's always good for for everything. I mean, that's good for, in general, your career and your life.
I want to put some emphasis on that point. Build and show people. The hardest thing you will ever build and show off is going to be the first thing, and then after that, after you do it once, you have you have crossed this threshold of transparency and authenticity of what you're capable of, because you pretty much are showing the limits of what you're capable of. You're probably not going to put out stuff that you think is crappy for your very first thing. However, that's incredibly scary, but until you make that leap, you may not necessarily ever make some of the bigger leaps after that. That being said, Mike, you said OpenG Commander earlier. That is still a Googleable term that people can go and type, and they can download some of this code that you had written, a long, long time ago, and see what it is. And you may look back on it and cringe. However, think about where you are now, having made that jump. What was it, about 12 or 13 years ago at this point? So I would encourage everyone, go on to LavaG, upload some code, go on to GitHub, upload some code. I saw somebody do that on Lava just this past week, and I'm looking to get back to him. He uploaded his CLA Summit practice test and said, please, could I get feedback, which is perhaps one of the scariest things that you can possibly do. Here's my work, judge me on it, but I want to get better.
Yeah, I think, and plus the LabVIEW community is very open and kind most of the time, unless you're a student, trying to find a way to cheat on your test, or someone to solve the problem for you. But for most of the time, it's very warm and welcoming. Yeah, Chris.
Part of that is because we're still relatively small, and because the community is still a little immature. We're even some of the people that I consider to be the greatest architects still in the back of their mind remember when 20 years ago they were in the same boat, right? Rather than just saying I'm a grand wizard and know everything and I will crush you. It's more like, this guy used this kind of state machine. That's totally something that I did back then. So let's give everyone a hand up so that we can, raise the tide and raise all the ships with it as well.
Yeah. So definitely. I mean, the OpenG Commander. I mean, that's an example of me kind of just jumping in and just doing it, just putting it out there. It's I'd like to see a lot of other people do that. I know, Jack, you're doing a little bit of that, and you're going to be doing more in the future. But in general, I'd like to see, and there's hundreds, not hundreds. I wish there was hundreds, but there's dozens of other people on Lava who've posted to the code repository and submitted code there, and there's other people that have produced free tools and paid tools on the LabVIEW Tools Network. But those are the things that I like seeing, and seeing participation.
Yeah, I can remember my first time, and I even remember who responded and helped me through it. And it's a little embarrassing, the first technical question I asked. Now I would not, I don't even do this thing that I thought was such a grand idea. But Yair Neiman from Israel answered, and he's like, yeah, that's actually a design that some people use. And it's not crazy. You can do it if you want to. And that first time still sticks with me. That was many years ago. Not, I'm younger than all you on the panel, but for me it feels like many years.
Oh, much.
And one thing that I also found very important in my career and in business and also in LabVIEW is to have a mentor. And if you're starting off and you're just learning LabVIEW, it's best to have someone who's more experienced than you just tell you what to do, or answer your questions and kind of get you over humps and quickly. And that's kind of what being in a company with great people and talent helps, is that you have several mentors, but you should always have some mentor, and I think that's the best way to learn and grow. And as over time, as you grow and things get, as you get more knowledge, obviously you'll at some point exceed your mentor, and then you have to find new mentors. But you should always have a mentor at some point to guide
And
you
that's
along.
true. That's true of any skill in any industry, I think, and it's something that the really great companies do really well.
Yeah. And
Well,
Sounds like
one of the things that I really valued when I was working with Nancy Hollenbach in the Field Architect Group is that she and I would come at problems completely different ways, and so we would have some great discussions / arguments about things. And you have to have somebody who's able to hang with you at that level of whatever it is, whatever problem you're trying to solve.
Okay, well, we're at the end of the show, and again, I'd like to thank all my guests for being on the panel. It's been awesome having you guys along for the ride, and basically, the whole purpose of this show was just to kind of let people know about my new change, and since I'm an online person for the last few years, I thought the best way to do it was to just do it online and just let everyone know at the same time. And having you guys there with me while I'm doing it kind of makes it a lot easier, and it's nice to
Honored
have
to
you
be
guys.
part of it.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Chris. And thank you, Jack. And thank you, Justin.
Golly,
And,
thanks, Mike.
Congratulations.
and thank you all for who are in the chat. And I appreciate all the comments and congratulations. And we have another one from Sergey. And I appreciate all the comments from Steen Schmidt and everyone else. So that's it. Thank you all again for listening, and bye for now.